Hi everybody, and welcome to another video on Age of Empires 4. So Age of Empires 4 was just released this week on Xbox and is currently available on Xbox Game Pass or for purchase through the Microsoft Store. I've recently just posted a video of my initial impressions on the game on Xbox if you want to check it out. And today we're going to be looking at some beginner tips for Age of Empires 4 on Xbox. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. I'm just starting out with this channel, so I would appreciate any feedback. Let me know in the comments what you've enjoyed or anything we can work on. And yeah, I hope you enjoy. So, as mentioned, the aim of this video is really to give some very basic tips for getting started with Age of Empires 4 on Xbox for those of you that are new to the game. And it's also for those of you who may be returning to the franchise after a long time away, just want a refresher on how to go about things. And the advice and tips are applicable to other Age of Empires games as well. So Age of Empires 2 has also recently released on Xbox. I'd really recommend trying that out if you haven't done so already. And, you know, some of the tips that I'll talk about here are definitely transferable to that game as well. So you're starting out in a skirmish match. And one of the first things to know really is that villages and the town centre are going to be really key in each match that you play. So the town centre is where you can create villages. They're like a very basic unit that you can purchase. And there's a saying within Age of Empires that your town centre should always be working. So as you build up your army and empire, you should be looking to continue to make villages to support your economy, as the villagers are the ones that are going to be gathering your gold, stone, wood and food, which are the 4 resources that you need to finance your empire. And there's lots of different strategies you can employ in terms of how many villages you need in different ages, but the general goal is just to keep creating villages as you go through the ages, and you should aim ultimately for approximately half of your population to be villagers as you progress through to the final age. So the typical population count in Age of Empires is 200 units, so you can aim to have sort of up to 100 villagers out of your total 200 population. You can have more than that if you need to, because there's always the option to delete them if you need space eventually to create more military units, so that's an option as well. So the Xbox version of Age of Empires 4 has a resource wheel, which is a really easy way of assigning your villagers to the different resources. So you can open up the resource wheel and there are predetermined options basically that you can select with differing proportions of resources within each option basically. So there's options, for example, that include more food and gold gathering. There's options that are going to be more balanced, where your villagers are going to focus on all of the resources. There's also the option within the resource wheel to manually select the quantities of resources that you want the villagers to gather. So at the start of a match, one of your biggest priorities is going to be on collecting food. Food is going to be what you'll need to purchase new villagers with, so it's really useful to have some extra food available at the start of the game. You will also need some wood as well for building new buildings, and wood will be needed for the creation of houses. So you'll start with only a limited population limit, and you'll need to build houses as you go to allow your population to grow, so you'll need some wood for that. It's also a good idea maybe to have a very small proportion of your villagers focused on gold at the very start, just so you've got some gold coming in, which will be useful later. I would say that stone is less important at the very beginning of a match. As you go through the match, your priorities will shift as you progress through the different ages, and using the resource wheel you can very easily review what you'd like your villagers to be doing at a given time. So on the subject of resources, another really important building that you're going to need to use is a market. So once you've gone through your first upgrade to the next age, the feudal age, you'll have the option to build a market. And at the market you can purchase and sell different resources. The useful thing to do at the start of a match is to just have a look what's actually around your base in terms of which resources are nearby. You might find that in a given game there's not much of a particular resource around, so there might not be much stone around, for example, or not much gold. However, you might have a large volume of trees around the base, so in that circumstance you might be able to switch more of your villagers to gathering wood and then look to sell the excess wood that you gather in the market for stone or gold, and that will just counteract the fact that you've started with less stone or gold around. So you can be clever about how you use the resources around you and utilise the market. So this brings me on to a few comments and tips about military units. So at the start of the game you'll typically start with a scout, so that might be a scout cavalry unit, and you should look to send them off around the map to look for the enemy early and identify any resources or points of interest. So if you do that early on, scout the map, you'll definitely get an advantage in the game because you'll have an awareness of what's out there. So your immediate priority when you're starting a new game would be to start gathering some resources and growing your villager count before you start developing lots of different military units. It's not a bad idea to maybe have a few military units from the barracks early on, just to guard against any early attacks, but you don't need to be making military units as the first thing that you do when starting a new match. You should look to advance at least into the feudal age before prioritising the military. So when you start a match, the only military building that you'll be able to build initially will be a barracks, and it won't be until you reach the feudal age where you'll then be able to build an archery range or a stables. So typically within a given match, you're going to need a diverse range of different units in order to successfully win in battle. What you'll find is that different units have their own strengths and weaknesses, so they'll be stronger against certain units, more vulnerable and weaker against other units that are out there. So typically to win a match and to win different battles that you might come across in a match, you're going to need a diverse army. So you'll need to have infantry units from the barracks, you'll need some mounted units from the stables, and also some archers from the archery range. There are of course other military units that you can develop as you go through the match from other building types. So for example you can develop siege units, but units from the barracks, the stables and the archery ranges are going to be the most common ones that you're going to encounter. So if you were to just heavily invest in one unit type only, then you would be vulnerable to counter-attacks potentially from the enemy. So for example, if you just invested in cavalry units, then cavalry units can easily be countered by pikemen, for example. So that's a infantry unit that can be made in the barracks. You can read about all of the different units online and the counters that exist for the different units, and I hope to touch on that in a later video. So we have an example of a battle here. So I'm going into this battle with a mixture of different military units within my group. Now when we then encounter the enemy, you can see here that the infantry units that I've made from the barracks are an effective counter against the cavalry units that the enemy has. And the archers that exist within this group are providing sort of effective cover and support from behind. And by having that sort of mixture of different units, we can see in this battle we've been able to effectively overcome the opponent. So as you go through a match, it won't be enough just to have one barracks, one stables and one archery range. You'll need to make sure that you have multiple military buildings to help support your army. So you can imagine that if you're under attack, for example, and you need to produce more of a certain unit, if you've just got one archery range and you need to produce archers, all of your archers that are coming out of that archery range are in a queue, and it's going to take a long time for the archers to come out. They're all going to come out one by one, and it's going to be easy pickings for the opponent if they're attacking you. If you've got 3 or 4 archery ranges, for example, you can quite easily develop a couple of units from each one. That means that you can quickly build your overall population of that military unit type and be much better equipped and prepared to deal with battles that might come your way. So this video has just been an introduction to Age of Empires 4 and some of the concepts and strategies that you can utilise. By no means is it an extensive guide. There is far more to learn, and I hope I can touch on some more things in later videos. If you've liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you've enjoyed the content, please subscribe to the channel. We're just starting out here with the channel, so if there's anything else you'd like to see or any feedback you'd like to give, please drop us a comment. Thank you for watching.